All right, so much ground to cover. I don't even know where to begin. We've already talked a good bit tonight about we've talked about the riots in the street and the left's idea of unity being that we're all of America is supposed to, beg forgiveness for being systemically racist and agree to whatever the Democrats want to come up with. Maybe that's where we'll start. Because the left, the Democrats are clearly going to exploit this in any way that they can for every income redistribution, big government, big spending scheme that they can. And that's what I expect to happen in the House. Where do you see the Democrats trying to take this from a policy standpoint in the House?
Well, I think they're going to use it for additional fuel to accomplish kind of a Marxian point of view on the world. That's what they have. So Pelosi's already been doing that by changing the rules of the House. She's already been doing it with these massive trillions of dollars worth of relief packages that she's put. But what this does is this gives her an additional impetus to basically say, we're going to take the anarchist movement that's going forward. By the way, anarchy doesn't really solve anything because it creates a void and a vacuum of authority and power. And so what Pelosi's trying to do is in this time with the apparent feeling of anarchy, she's going to try to arrogate power to the leftists for a Marxist type of worldview. That's what she wants, a Marxian government.
Absolutely. When the reality is I'm not aware of any law right now where it is for example, Rand Paul is trending today because he didn't support the anti-lynching bill. And I thought to myself, isn't lynching already a crime? Is there any law on the books right now that makes it okay to discriminate against a person of color, a minority?
No. In fact, we have a plethora of laws going the other way. So you can't kill anybody, and it's a hate crime if it's done for racial purposes. So we've already codified much of what people are ostensibly talking about. I just don't think, Andrew, we should conflate the protesters who have a grievance and they legitimately want to complain about that grievance. I think that's perfectly constitutional. It has just been hijacked, however, by these people who are trying to burn down the country and to do, as you said in your monologue just a second ago, they want to basically institutionalize an anti-critical race theory ideology, which is basically Marxian-derived philosophy.
Right. I mean, you look at the latest push and the way they're trying to hijack it. And to use a crude analogy, to me, it's kind of like the peaceful protesters are kind of like the moderate Muslims. No, they're clearly not a part of the problem. I've got a lot of moderate Muslims in my neighborhood, one that made the best pineapple upside-down cake you've ever had in your life. They're not a part of the problem, but, they're also not a part of the solution. And so we do have to separate out the peaceful protesters. And it's the smaller group that's really got all the power right now because they're the ones willing to terrorize you until they get what they want out of it. And that's what we need to be careful. That's what we're dealing with and what we need to be prepared to push back against. Because you look at today, it's all about defunding police departments. And then tonight, the Minneapolis City Council says, we're going to dismantle our current police department and we're going to replace it with something that's a new model. That's really scary when you think about they're wanting to completely dismantle our police departments across this country. Are we then going to have just our entire lives look like they did right in New York City and Lafayette Park?
Yeah, I mean, Andrea, what's frightening about it to me is I agree with you. I'm looking at this and I'm saying, how can breeding anarchy do anything but allow basically a fascist to rise to power? And they think Donald Trump's a fascist. Donald Trump is not a fascist. Donald Trump he's trying to actually impose federalism, which is the way we're supposed to be. But it is this type of rioting, this type of mentality that says, hey, we're going to dismantle the law and order, the thin blue line that's supposed to protect our rights. That's how you see people like an Adolf Hitler rise to power. And so I'm really curious to see what in the heck they think they're going to do. Because, in Arizona, we've tried to pass de-escalation training bills for years. And that's who opposed it? the left always opposed
Yes.
our de-escalation training bills, and that's really what you see everywhere.
We're right. And to the protesters, and George Floyd's brother, who spoke so eloquently the other day, he said, "Be careful, pay attention to who you vote for, and they want us to burn our town down." I thought you're absolutely right, but I think you've got the "they" wrong, because it's the Democrats that want this kind of destruction. They're the ones actually paying for it through Antifa and delivering bricks and providing the means of destruction and encouraging this and encouraging it in these very communities, because they gain from this. The Democrats gain from it by blaming white supremacists, blaming Trump, by expanding the dependency class and keeping the economic conditions in the minority communities down, because that gives them power. And so people do need to be paying attention to if you don't like the conditions on the ground in towns like Minneapolis and Chicago and others, you really do need to be paying attention to who you're voting for. You look at what's going on with these shutdowns, 40 million people out of work. Congressman Biggs, because coronavirus, those same people saying that are the same people behind the destruction of these communities with these riots, and are also the same people. We've only got a minute left. I want everybody to go to your article about the lesson of government's ugly intrusion into America's healthcare system. This is at the Washington Times. We didn't have time to get into it, but you're right. Trump is about federalism, and everybody needs to read the reality of what they did to us from a healthcare perspective by federalizing healthcare during coronavirus. 30 seconds, wrap us up.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. So you saw an irrigation of power under the lockdowns, and it destroyed our economy and gave them power. The left thrives on dissension and when they breed disunity. And now that's what you're seeing here with this more active physical violence role that we're seeing out there. We have got to stand up. It's we the people. We are the people that have to stand up and say no more. Elected officials, you're going to have to invoke the charter, the Constitution, and the Declaration of Independence. That's going to give us peace and freedom back.
Absolutely. Well, God bless you, Congressman Biggs, for all you're doing for freedom, for your constituents there, and for all of the constituents in the country.